We all know Joseph Christian Leyendecker for his expertly painted faces, hair, clothing, and flowers, and pretty much all the painterly aspects of his work, sculpted beautifully with his brush in ranges of harmonious hues. But I think we often forget about the true mastery of his artwork, in my opinion, one of the most core art fundamentals, and I think he just really excelled at compositional design more than anything else. I think he himself regarded his work and his career as being a designer most of all. His images inspired generations of American iconography, and we still feel the impacts of his work today. Like, the images that he was producing at the time are still traditional cornerstones of American visual culture. So one of the things that he popularized with his illustrations was the tradition of gifting flowers on Mother's Day. He also helped to kind of more solidify an official Santa Claus design with his artwork. I'm pretty sure he was the one who invented the concept of the New Year's baby. He would always paint a baby for I think this went on for 40 years for the Saturday Evening Post. So he did that concept. He painted a lot of Thanksgiving and football iconography that eventually became so linked together that we still that's still American culture so heavily associates football and Thanksgiving, as well as homecoming. He also made firecrackers popular for the 4th of July instead of discharging firearms and other artillery into the sky, which albeit still happens today, but to a lot less extent. Back then, they multiple people would die every single year because of those celebrations. And I think this book that I have about Leyendecker, I'll have the reference on screen, but there's a quote that basically explains what politicians could not do by means of years of speechifying, Leyendecker accomplished with a single image. So influencing all these people to purchase and use firecrackers and fireworks instead of actual firearms for the 4th of July. And looking at his work now and in this lens of American iconography and art being as a means to influence, inform, and to persuade a public, I think in an age where governments are actively trying to defund art programs, grants, and scholarships, thinking that they're unnecessary and waste some money, in addition to it feeling outright bleak and just makes you feel sad, it feels more like a removal of resources or rallying and communication by artists to the public. But I don't know. That's just a theory. A game theory. So when artists plan out to do a Leyendecker study nowadays, I feel what I primarily see online is a focus on a headshot, a hand, a bundle of flowers, which there's technical merit in breaking down his brushstrokes and how he depicts form, yes, but there is so much more to his work than just his formal painting skills. Leyendecker was a designer, a composer, a storyteller, and I think studying his pieces as a whole, seeing the forest for the trees is more important than ever in an age of replacing paint strokes with prompts. And I think before doing any sort of study of an artist, at least for my own art history curiosity and understanding of that person's work, I think it's important to realize the context of Leyendecker's work before studying so we can understand his design motivations and decisions more holistically and better apply it to what we're doing now. So a lot of the work we see from Leyendecker was made for print publication and advertising, most popularly the Saturday Evening Post and the Arrow Collar clothing advertisements. Many of his paintings are figures against a stark background, heavily focused on the character, and being that these pages were printed weekly, it makes sense that they were as effective as possible with using the figure instead of painting super intricate backgrounds and scenes every single week. He was also working in traditional material oil paint. So maybe us now with digital means, we could produce this amount of work that quickly, but he was working in oil. He had to plan these things out and apply them to a canvas that was significantly larger than what the actual print ended up being. And I think because of his work being meant for commercial publication, he had to stick within certain parameters. He couldn't just paint whatever he wanted. So that included promoting this very idealistic American visual standard at the time, very conventional looking women and men, and I believe he wasn't allowed to depict people of color, specifically Black people, as the subject of the Saturday Evening Post paintings. The only way that he could include people of color is that they had to be in some sort of like serving role. And we don't know if he himself wanted to like push back against this or he like agreed with this, like we don't know, but hopefully I'd like to think that he was trying to be a bit more progressive with some of his paintings, but we just don't know. And I've also realized through looking at his work, plus size people are usually seen as like the butt of the joke or just like not taken as seriously or romanticized or idealized like the prevalent like thin archetypes that he's painting. So there's a lot of things that we have to be aware of when we look at his work. It's very much like American idealism and like nuclear family, but he still has like these beautiful paintings. But it's just important that we recognize that first so we can kind of bring a newer interpretation and like a newer take what we want and then leave the rest kind of deal, if that makes sense. It's also commonly known now that Leyendecker was gay and used his own partner's likeness, Charles Beach, as the icon of the idealized American man in many of the clothing advertisements and Saturday Evening Post covers. The American public at the time had no idea of this while he was still working and actively publishing his work. And for it to be known would have been career-ending and potentially life-endangering as well for him and his partner. So much of his life was private and closed off because of this. In the J.C. Leyendecker book that I have, I think in one of the sections, it really emphasized how Leyendecker and Beach mostly just stuck together, and Leyendecker rarely hung out with other artists and colleagues and kind of rarely developed relationships outside of the home and outside of his immediate family. But looking at his work more formally, the compositions are often very simple and clear, but purposeful in shape and gesture. If you're trying to advertise clothing or any other product, you don't want to confuse the viewer on where to look or be distracted by other objects in your image. This very intentionally designed graphic quality is perfect for advertising because you want to catch the attention of the viewer, make them instantly understand what you're communicating with that image, and in turn get the consumer to buy the paper or the product. I feel like this is very similar to like YouTube thumbnails basically, or any type of like online marketing campaign now. You want to visually catch the eye of the audience that you're trying to reach, and at the same time have them like instantly understand what's going on in that image so that they feel motivated to click on that video or click on that product link, all that sort of stuff. So a lot of this can be applied to like what we as artists are trying to do now with marketing our artwork, specifically in an advertising sense, but also in like a storytelling sense. So this skill in illustration, the ability to compose an image and make specific design choices, to be able to manipulate your subject and graphic elements to tell a story, convey an emotion or idea, that's what I think Leyendecker is truly a master at. And his technical skills just take him even farther. They're like the icing on the cake. Well, I don't think they'd be the icing on the cake. I feel like with his work, the technical aspect really do like support his vision. Like I feel like if his work wasn't as like technically excellent, then maybe his idea would fall through. So maybe it's more like a relationship. Like both are really important in their own sense, but if they don't have the other, then it fails to bring out the best in each of them, if that makes sense. Yeah, I think I like that better. It's not just the icing. They're both important. So we should study both of them. In fact, from a technical aspect, Leyendecker depicts form extremely well, but he kind of uses the same trick every time, if you notice in his paintings. Even if the clothing or the characters are more complex, often he lights his subject with two light sources, usually a fill light contrasted with a rim light. And this graphic way of lighting his characters gives them weight and more grandiosity, almost like they were studio or stage lit, which also, if you think about the context of his work, and producing this work, a lot of what he painted was studied from real life models, so he probably had control over how they were lit and how best that would convey form and clarity in the painting. We are also often looking at the figures slightly from below, which adds again to like the grandiosity of his figures, which paired with this lighting just makes them seem like larger than life icons of a hyper idealized like American public. When I was in high school, I was pretty much always told that central design elements made for a static composition, but what Leyendecker does differently is add gestural design elements throughout his illustrations to convey movement. And that central design aids in a feeling of tranquility and stability, and that attractive, pleasing nature of his work definitely would draw eyes to the publication. So I wanted to study his work to hopefully elevate my own character and cover work to the next level and add design and compositional elements to make a simple, one-off figurative illustration describe so much more than just a character on a blank background. Composition is something that I really want to focus on this year and practice more consistently, and I feel like it's kind of the biggest thing that's been holding me back with my work a lot of the times in a lot of different ways. So for instance, when I was working on the first part of the Y2K Witch comic, I found that either I was drawing a lot of the same panel compositions, which was typically some sort of character face reacting to something, or it was the overall page composition with the panels lacking movement and creativity in relation to the storytelling. So I was just like, man, I really got to work on this aspect, because I think so much of my art creation in the past, like probably up until like halfway through college, I was mainly just working in my sketchbook. Like I didn't have like a ton of experience like actually making fully finished pieces, like illustration, like imaginative illustration with my characters. Like everything always stayed in my sketchbook, which I feel like held me back for such a long time. And now I'm finally like making these fully finished pieces and realizing like, man, I really need to study composition. I really need to like look closer at what I want to create and how this composition, how this visual tool can aid my storytelling. And I feel like that skill is just like lacking. It's kind of like if you're working out and you really like to work out your legs, like you really like to do squats and lunges and like leg presses, like all those sort of things, and you get really like far in that area, but then you go to do like a push-up or a pull-up and you like instantly fail, and it's like really difficult. I feel like that's me in my art right now. There's some things I can do well and I feel confident with. Well, even those things I'm still like learning, but like other things, if it's just like sketching or doing a bunch of explorative things and coming up with ideas, like I feel confident about that. And like even just like simple portrait painting, I feel confident with. But when it comes to like fuller illustrations and sequential like visual storytelling, that's where I feel like I really start to falter, and I feel like I don't have like stamina in that area, and I don't have enough knowledge or enough practice in that area basically. So because of this lack of skill in this area, I think this second quarter of the year I really want to focus on composition, and that starts with like taking action and studying. So to start working on the skill, and after studying Leyendecker's work, which you guys have seen in this video already, I wanted to make a kind of faux comic cover for a character I recently designed, hinting at her story a little bit more while trying to craft a more intentional illustration, or at least attempt to. So this is my Druid Fluttershy design, and I wanted to imagine what a backstory comic issue of my D&D My Little Pony project could look like if she had like a one-off story going into how she became a Dampier and like all the events leading up to that, and just trying to create a piece like conveying the softness and reserved nature of the character while subtly hinting at her vampirism. And like I said, for this painting and for most of my work in the next couple of months, I really want to focus on composition and spend a lot of time thumbnailing out ideas and really pushing myself to try new things instead of what my brain automatically comes up with, and also like researching more things, because the compositions that most like resonate with what I want to do or what I just like, they have a lot of storytelling and intentionality and elements that just add to the piece rather than like complicate that. And I feel like that just comes through like research and writing and intentionality, which I've already done a ton of writing with my own characters and with this My Little Pony project. So I'm hoping that eventually things start to click and composition becomes something that's a lot more intuitive for me. So yesterday I was working on a ton of different thumbnail iterations for what I wanted to communicate with this piece, specifically looking at the shape design and the framing of the character. And I find myself like doing like the same thing over and over again, and I was just kind of stumped on ideas for how I could be more creative with the composition. And Steven yesterday gave me the idea of trying to incorporate some sort of like fang idea within the shapes, trying to get more of like a sharp pointed shape going on, almost like this like mouth. So he gave me that idea and we were like messing around with it, and it wasn't really turning out how we thought. But then I found these beautiful muka pieces that had this crescent shape. I thought that was such a cool composition, and so now I'm taking that sort of crescent shape and trying to see how I could put that in and make it fit with this character, since she is like this nocturnal vampire character. I thought it'd be cool to have like this crescent shape and kind of just like push that like vibe and push that like more like vampiric feeling to this piece. So yeah, I'm just gonna explore a little bit more and hopefully I'll find something that I like. So after exploring different compositions in my sketchbook, I chose about 6 of them to finalize further digitally and eventually nailed it down to like 2 different compositions that I liked. One more static and peaceful with a sharp compositional shape, and the other more dynamic but still serene. In retrospect, I honestly kind of regret my choice in not picking the latter, the more dynamic one, because I definitely feel like it's more dynamic and engaging than the other. And I was going to go with that one first, and that's why I liked it, but at the last minute, I second guessed my pick and went with the other one. I'm definitely not beating the overthinker allegations, I guess, but I'm still learning, and I still think it turns out as a decent painting. I think my thought process was to choose the one that maybe felt more like the character, more solemn and static and a bit more symbolic, but I think from a compositional standpoint, and if this truly was a comic cover, the more dynamic tilted crescent composition I think works a lot better. Maybe I'll still pursue it in the future or use it as like maybe like a quick warm-up painting, or like use it as like a speed painting exercise or something like that. And I don't know if you guys ever feel this way, but sometimes I think I wish I had some sort of art director outside of myself to make decisions like this for me. I think it's because composition is a skill that I don't have a lot of confidence in. I tend to overthink things a ton and make decisions out of fear rather than what I think is best for the story and what I am like confident about. I feel like I can easily come up with a ton of different ideas, but choosing what to do and deciphering which is the best option, that's really difficult for me, and I hope to get better at that skill with more practice. And just like that way of seeing, because a lot of people say like drawing is mostly about being able to see, and maybe it's just developing that eye more, which I really want to practice for April. So next month I will be doing Plein Air April. And Plein Air April is a daily art challenge where you go outside and make a painting every day. This challenge was started back in 2017 by Warrior Painters, and I have never participated in it before, but now I really want to, because this is a skill that I realize I obviously like lack a bunch of like knowledge in and a lot of experience in. So Plein Air will be definitely a great way to get me started in that area. And because of the lovely ever tumultuous weather of Florida and the time it takes for us to actually drive out to a nice area to paint, that wouldn't be doxing myself. It won't be possible to actually go outside and paint every day of April, but I'm really hoping to substitute some of those days for indoor painting from a photograph, or even better from a still life that I could set up at home. And with this exercise, like I said, I really want to focus on composition and decision making, things that I really struggle with in my normal work. I feel like a lot of the times what I'm studying with my art practice right now isn't necessarily like the technical skills, even though I obviously still need some work in that, but it's more so just like the mindset skills and the composing skills. Like, I think I have like a basis in like foundational technical skills, but now it's more just like putting things together and being intentional. But anyways, in order to prepare for this challenge, because I didn't just want to like throw myself into painting every day, I just wanted to like slowly warm up to this. So throughout March, I hosted 2 study sessions over on my Discord where we studied Leyendecker pieces and Ghibli screenshots, which you can watch like the full recordings of on my Patreon. And along with that, I've been doing these like 20-minute painting studies of my favorite animated films as my warm-up each workday, and now slowly coming up with my own paintings. So right now, the other day, I did a little imaginative painting of what I think Celine's house from Fields of Mischief would look in more of a like more realistic, painterly, yet still like stylized way. And then I also did a little environment concept of a more realistic version of Sweet Apple Acres that I would really love to explore more as a part of my D&D MLP series to do some environmental design. And this is all just like pushing myself a little bit more each day with my compositional and environment painting skills. And I found this gradual approach of learning a new skill, bridging like copying and studying to application and invention over the course of a month and even longer, because I started studying composition like back in February or January. No, it was like January with the arcane study stream, and I found this like just gradual buildup of intensity and more like brain effort on my part, going from just like studying black and white to my own original paintings, has been really helpful in reducing overwhelm and just like giving up on learning this area, because I know it's a really difficult and like broad area to learn, like composition. There's like so much that goes into that. But like I said, just starting with just simple black and white studies for the first week, and then direct color studies of the stills that I grabbed from my favorite TV shows and movies, then back to black and white studies of Leyendecker pieces, then back to the color studies of the films for a couple days, and now onto imagining my own scenes based off of my own interests has been really helpful. And it's just like, oh yeah, this is a like comfortable way of learning for me, and I should do this more often. It's been fun to imagine these full scenes and just jump right into painting something without planning too much. For these imaginative paintings, I still grab some references, but it more so has been an exercise in letting go, enjoying the process, and just like capturing a mood and applying from what I just learned from the direct copies. So with how this piece turned out, it's not bad. I think the crescent shape is really interesting, and the coolness of the image really feels peaceful in contrast with the sharpness of the crescent. I don't think I normally do a lot of cool color palette things, so I think I had a lot of fun with like the purples and the greens and the blues, and I think it was like a good like experimental piece for me. And it was fun to put this character into an environment for the first time, and it gives me a lot of ideas for what I can do in the future. Like, I really want to paint this scene of Druid Fluttershy in the Everfree Forest, like in her quote-unquote like natural habitat where she basically grew up, and she's just surrounded by either like dire wolves or like undead creatures, and she's just like hanging out. She just looks like really happy. It's like a bit of like a darker Disney princess vibe, I guess. But now, since doing this piece, it gives me a lot more confidence with going into that piece in the future. And I'm proud that I pushed myself to think more about the composition and intentionality with how I place things in the image and how I position the character. I just need to be more confident in what I'm choosing and follow my instincts a little bit more and not like second guess myself so much, I guess. Yeah. I may go back and try out that other composition. Like, maybe it will be my warm up for a day, or like I'm going on like spring break soon, so maybe I'll have some fun with it and like tinker with it during that. But until then, I will continue to paint, explore, and capture the stories I care about. And I'm confident that mastery will come in time, eventually. At least I hope. Leyendecker will continue to be a huge inspiration for me and my work, and I'm looking forward to studying him again and learning something new. It feels like every single time I do a study of him or read more about him and his work, I always learn something new, and it always brings a lot more understanding to why he painted how he painted. And yeah, that's what's been going on in my art brain these past couple of weeks. Thinking a lot about story and composition, as always. I feel like that's been the theme this year, as well as a bit of art history with Leyendecker's work. Thank you for watching and listening to this more casual style draw with me video. Let me know if you guys want more of these. I know it's been a while since I've done this sort of sit down and chat directly with you guys style video. I'm really hoping to do more because I like filming these types of videos. I'm looking into building a better traditional painting setup, so hopefully there will be more like sketchbook drawing videos too coming your way. So let me know what you think of the finished painting. If you're interested in this character, my Little Pony Dungeons and Dragons design series, make sure to check out the video on your screen now. Or if you're interested in more draw with me's, that will be linked down below if you want to keep drawing with me. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching and drawing with me today. I feel like I've said drawing like 400 times this video. I hope you have a great day. Take care of yourself, maybe draw for a bit, and I will see you in the next one. Alright guys, bye. Thank you.